The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species gathered for what they believed would be a routine first contact evaluation. Ambassador Zextail of the Viridian Empire adjusted his crystalline breathing apparatus and studied the holographic displays showing the species under review. Humans, they called themselves. A relatively young species from a small blue world in the Outer Rim territories. Their technological advancement is adequate, reported Chief Analyst Morgeth, her tentacles dancing across the control interface. Nuclear capability achieved roughly 75 years ago by their reckoning. Basic space travel, primitive energy weapons, simple computing systems. Council leader Thandok, whose species had been exploring the galaxy for over 3 millennia, leaned forward in his hover seat. Standard protocol suggests they're ready for limited contact. Nothing unusual in their development pattern. The assessment seemed routine until communications specialist Veltar suddenly straightened, his 6 eyes widening in what his species displayed as alarm. Honored Council, I'm detecting an anomaly in our surveillance data from their primary space station. Elaborate, Thandok commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had overseen first contact with over 40 species. Veltar's fingers moved rapidly across his console. Our stealth probe captured an incident aboard their orbital facility. The footage is unusual. The chamber's main display activated, showing the interior of what appeared to be a human maintenance bay. The quality was exceptional thanks to Viridian optical technology that could record through solid matter without detection. Several humans moved about their tasks, wearing simple work uniforms and primitive protective gear. Standard maintenance operations, observed Morgeth dismissively. Nothing remarkable about their work patterns or tool usage. But Veltar shook his head, his breathing apparatus whistling with agitation. Watch this human designated as Marcus Chen, according to their identification systems. The camera focused on a human male of average build, perhaps 35 years of age by human standards. He appeared unremarkable in every way as he worked on what seemed to be a power coupling repair. His movements were efficient, but showed no signs of enhanced capability. I fail to see, Thandok began, but Veltar raised a manipulator for silence. Wait for it, honored leader. Time index 142307. On the display, another human worked on a maintenance platform roughly 3 meters above Marcus. The worker, focused intently on his task, failed to notice when his cutting tool slipped from his grasp. The blade spun through the air, its monomolecular edge gleaming under the station's artificial lighting. What happened next would fundamentally change how the Galactic Council viewed humanity. Marcus Chen, who had been facing away from the falling tool, somehow sensed its descent. Without looking up, without any apparent visual confirmation of the danger, his hand shot out with impossible speed. He plucked the spinning blade from the air mere centimeters before it would have severed his spinal column. The casual nature of the catch was what sent ripples of shock through the assembled aliens. Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't show surprise or relief. He simply caught the blade, glanced at it briefly, and tossed it back to his colleague with a casual comment about being more careful. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Replay that sequence, Thandok ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. They watched it again. And again. Each viewing only confirmed what they had witnessed. The human's reaction time was impossible by any known biological standard. The coordination required to snatch a spinning blade from the air without injury defied everything they understood about standard organic limitations. Analysis, Thandok demanded. Morgeth's tentacles worked frantically across her instruments. The human's neural response time measured at 0.03 seconds from initial movement detection to completed catch. This is approximately 15 times faster than the theoretical maximum for carbon-based neural pathways of their apparent complexity. Cybernetic enhancement, suggested Zextal, though his tone carried little conviction. Negative, Veltar reported after scanning the archived data. Our deep tissue scans show no artificial implants, no technological augmentation, no genetic modification beyond their species baseline. This appears to be natural capability. A new voice spoke from the observers section. Krillnox, the military representative from the hegemony of scales, had remained silent during most first contact evaluations. His species were warriors by nature, and they typically showed little interest in peaceful civilizations. "Show me more," he commanded, his scaled hide rippling with what his people displayed as intense curiosity. Veltar pulled up additional surveillance footage from various human facilities. "We have extensive data from their space stations, military installations, civilian areas, and industrial sites. Initially, we categorized many incidents as recording errors or equipment malfunctions." New footage began playing. A human construction worker casually stepping aside as a massive steel beam swung toward him, moving out of the way so smoothly it seemed choreographed. A human pilot making minute control adjustments that prevented a catastrophic system failure, her hands moving across controls too quickly for normal perception to track. Human soldiers in training scenarios displaying coordination and reflexes that seemed to violate the basic laws of biological response time. "How many instances have you recorded?" Krillnox asked, his voice carrying new interest. "Over 300 documented cases in the past 30 days of observation," Morgeth replied. "We initially dismissed them as anomalies because they seemed impossible. But the pattern is consistent across their entire population." The implications began settling over the council like a heavy shroud. Every species in the galaxy possessed certain natural abilities that exceeded galactic norms. The Viridians had their crystalline physiology that allowed them to process information at superhuman speeds. The hegemony species possessed natural armor and enhanced strength. The Morgethans had their multiple appendages and flexible problem-solving abilities. But humanity appeared to possess something far more dangerous than any single enhanced attribute. They seemed to have evolution's most perfect survival mechanism, the ability to react to threats faster than those threats could develop. "There's more," Veltar continued, bringing up new footage. "Observe this incident from their primary military academy." The display showed what appeared to be a training exercise. Human soldiers moved through an obstacle course designed to test their limits. But as the council watched, they realized these weren't standard physical challenges. The humans were navigating through automated defensive systems that fired actual projectiles. "Those are real weapons," Krillnox observed, his warrior's eye immediately identifying the lethality of the training equipment. "Confirmed," Morgeth said. "High-velocity projectiles, explosive devices, energy discharges. Our analysis indicates a 97.3% probability of severe injury or death for any participant who fails to maintain peak performance." Yet the humans moved through the course like dancers, their bodies seeming to anticipate threats before those threats fully manifested. They rolled under swinging blades, leaped over explosive charges, and twisted away from projectiles with fluid grace that suggested they could see the future itself. "How many casualties?" Thandok asked. "None," Veltar replied. "0 injuries recorded during the 3-week observation period of this particular exercise. Their safety record across all military training is remarkably consistent." The council members exchanged glances that carried thousands of years of collective wisdom and experience. They had seen species with natural advantages before. They had welcomed civilizations with enhanced strength, superior intellect, or natural weapons, but they had never encountered a species that seemed to be naturally designed for survival itself. "What do we know about their evolutionary history?" Zextal inquired. Morgeth brought up new data displays. "Their homeworld shows signs of an unusually violent evolutionary pressure system. Multiple ice ages, supervolcanic events, asteroid impacts, and climate fluctuations that would have driven most species to extinction. Yet not only did they survive, they thrived through each catastrophe. Predator analysis? Krillnox asked. Extensive. Their world contained over 40 different apex predators during various evolutionary periods, species with natural weapons, venomous attacks, pack-hunting strategies, and environmental adaptation abilities that exceed most known civilizations. Humans survived by becoming the ultimate generalist predator. The implications crystallized in Thanadoc's mind like a growing ice storm. You're suggesting they evolved not just to survive their environment, but to actively hunt everything else that survived it? The data supports this conclusion, Morgeth confirmed. They show persistent tool use dating back over 2 million years, coordinated hunting strategies that allowed them to bring down creatures 50 times their size, and adaptation abilities that let them colonize every environmental niche on their planet. But it was Veltar who delivered the information that truly chilled the council. Honored leaders, there's something else. Our linguistic analysis has uncovered something troubling about their historical records. The display shifted to show human historical documents, translated through their sophisticated universal communication protocols. They have a concept they call warrior cultures, Veltar explained. Civilizations that existed solely to produce fighters. But here's what's disturbing. These weren't their dominant societies. They were minorities. The majority of their population has always been what they term civilians, or peaceful citizens. I fail to see the concern, Thandoc said, though uncertainty crept into his voice. The concern, honored leader, is that what we just witnessed in the blade-catching incident? That wasn't a trained soldier or enhanced warrior. That was Marcus Chen, a civilian maintenance worker with no combat training or military experience. According to their records, he's considered completely average by human standards. The silence that followed was deafening. Krillnox was the first to speak, his voice carrying the weight of a species that had conquered 17 different star systems through military might. Are you telling this council that what we just observed represents the baseline capability of their entire population? That appears to be correct, Morgeth confirmed. Our analysis suggests that their trained military personnel possess capabilities that would exceed our current measurement parameters. The chamber erupted in concerned discussions as representatives from different species began calculating what this might mean for galactic peace and stability. The Galactic Council had maintained order for over 5,000 years by carefully managing the introduction of new civilizations and ensuring that no single species possessed capabilities that could destabilize the existing balance of power. But humanity appeared to represent something entirely unprecedented. Motion to table the first contact proposal, Zextal announced suddenly. I request additional study time to fully understand the implications of these findings. Seconded came from multiple sources around the chamber. But Thandoc raised a manipulator for silence. Before we proceed, I want to review more footage. Show me their conflict resolution methods. Show me how they handle disputes and aggressive encounters. What followed would convince the council that their concerns were not only justified, but potentially understated. Veltar pulled up surveillance footage from what appeared to be a human law enforcement situation. A single human officer approached a group of armed criminals who had taken hostages during what their records indicated was a robbery attempt. The criminals possessed weapons that could have killed the officer instantly. Yet the lone human walked into the situation with calm confidence that seemed completely disconnected from the obvious danger. When the criminals made their move, what followed was like watching a force of nature in human form. The officer moved with that same impossible speed they had witnessed in Marcus Chen, but now it was applied with deadly precision. He disarmed multiple attackers simultaneously, neutralized their weapons, and secured the hostages in less than 15 seconds of actual combat time. The truly unsettling part was his expression throughout the encounter. No rage, no fear, no apparent effort. He handled armed criminals the way most species might handle mildly annoying insects. "How many law enforcement officers does their civilization maintain?" Krillnox asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected the answer would be troubling. "Approximately 2 million across their planet," Morgeth replied. "But that represents less than 0.03% of their total population." The mathematics were becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. If their civilian maintenance workers could snatch spinning blades from the air without effort, and if their standard law enforcement could neutralize multiple armed attackers with casual ease, what capabilities might their actual military forces possess? "Show me their soldiers," Thandok commanded. But Veltar hesitated, his breathing apparatus cycling rapidly with what appeared to be anxiety. "Honored leader, perhaps we should—" "Show me their soldiers," Thandok repeated, his voice carrying unmistakable authority. The footage that followed would haunt the Galactic Council's collective nightmares for generations to come. Human military personnel moved through combat simulations that resembled nothing so much as controlled natural disasters. They operated in environments that would kill most galactic species instantly through environmental factors alone, while simultaneously engaging targets that moved faster than most civilizations could track visually. Yet the humans didn't just survive these scenarios. They dominated them with efficiency that suggested the simulations were barely challenging their actual capabilities. "These training exercises," Morgeth whispered, her voice filled with growing horror, "they're not preparing for conflicts with their own species. The threat parameters exceed anything their world could produce." The realization hit the council like a collapsing star. "They're training to fight us," Zextal said quietly. "Without even knowing we exist, they're already preparing for galactic-level threats." Thandok stood slowly, his ancient joints creaking with the weight of responsibility that had suddenly settled upon his shoulders. For 5,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained peace through careful diplomacy and the threat of overwhelming force when necessary. They had welcomed dozens of new species into their civilization by demonstrating both friendship and strength. But humanity represented something entirely beyond their experience. A species that appeared to have evolved specifically to survive anything the universe could produce, including civilizations far more advanced than themselves. The question that would dominate council discussions for the next several months was becoming clear. Should they attempt to integrate humanity into galactic civilization despite the obvious risks, or should they take preventive action while humanity was still confined to their single world? As the chamber slowly emptied and representatives returned to their quarters to file reports with their home governments, none of them could shake the image of Marcus Chen casually plucking death from the air and continuing with his day as if nothing unusual had occurred. In the depths of space, their stealth probes continued monitoring human activities, gathering data that would ultimately determine the fate of both humanity and the galactic civilization that was now forced to confront the possibility that they were no longer the apex powers in the universe. The blade-catching incident would be remembered as the moment when everything changed. Ambassador Zextal stood before the massive viewing portal in his private quarters aboard the council station, watching the stars and trying to process the intelligence reports that had been flooding in for the past 3 weeks. Since the blade-catching incident, the Galactic Council had tripled their surveillance efforts on humanity, and every new piece of data only deepened their growing concern. The door chimed softly, and Chief Analyst Morgeth entered with her usual graceful movement. Her tentacles carried data tablets, while her main arms gestured in patterns that indicated extreme urgency. "The deep behavioral analysis is complete," she announced without preamble. "Ambassador, we have a significant problem." Zextal turned from the portal, his crystalline features reflecting the starlight. Define significant. Morgeth activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. We've been approaching this incorrectly. We assumed the blade incident represented peak human capability under stress conditions. We were wrong. Explain. The display showed new footage from human civilian areas. A human child, perhaps 8 years of age by their developmental standards, playing in what appeared to be a recreational area. As they watched, a malfunction in the play equipment sent a heavy metal swing directly toward the child's head with enough force to cause serious injury. The child caught the swing without looking up from the drawing she was working on, held it steady with one small hand while she finished her artwork with the other, then gently pushed it away and continued coloring. That child demonstrated the same reaction speed as Marcus Chen, Morgeth explained. But here's what's truly alarming. Our psychological analysis indicates she wasn't even paying attention to the potential threat. She stopped the swing reflexively while maintaining primary focus on her creative activity. Zextal felt his breathing apparatus cycle more rapidly. You're suggesting their enhanced reflexes are unconscious. Completely automatic, Morgeth confirmed. We've documented over 1,500 similar incidents across all age groups and civilian populations. Their enhanced survival capabilities operate independently of conscious awareness or training. The implications sent cold currents through Zextal's crystalline physiology. A species that could defend itself reflexively, without conscious thought or effort, represented something far beyond anything the Galactic Council had ever encountered. What does military analysis conclude? He asked, though part of him already dreaded the answer. Morgeth's tentacles shifted to display new data. Krillnox has requested emergency session with the War Council. His preliminary assessment suggests that humanity represents what he terms evolution's perfect soldier, designed by natural selection rather than artificial enhancement. The War Council was comprised of the galaxy's most experienced military strategists from 6 different warrior species. They convened only when facing threats that could destabilize galactic civilization. The fact that Krillnox wanted their input meant that his own species' legendary combat experience was insufficient for analyzing humanity's capabilities. Schedule the session, Zextal decided. What else? Our xenobiologists have completed their analysis of human evolutionary pressure patterns, Morgeth continued, bringing up new displays that showed Earth's geological and biological history. The results explain their capabilities but raise even more concerning questions. The hologram shifted to show Earth's timeline across millions of years. Red indicators marked major extinction events, each one accompanied by data about survival requirements and environmental pressures. 73 major extinction events, Morgeth narrated, each one requiring different survival adaptations. Ice ages demanding thermal regulation and resource conservation, volcanic periods requiring respiratory adaptations and ash environment survival, asteroid impacts creating pressure waves that would liquefy most carbon-based organisms. How did they survive impacts that should have sterilized their planet? That's where it gets interesting, Morgeth replied, highlighting specific data points. They didn't just survive by hiding or migrating. Archaeological evidence suggests they survived by becoming mobile enough to outrun pressure waves, tough enough to withstand debris impacts, and adaptable enough to hunt in post-disaster environments. Zextal stared at the data, trying to comprehend the implications. They evolved to hunt during extinction events? Worse, Morgeth corrected. They evolved to thrive during extinction events. Our models suggest that each major catastrophe actually strengthened their species by eliminating individuals who lacked sufficient survival capabilities. The display shifted to show human expansion patterns across their planet. Unlike most species that evolved in specific environmental niches, humans had spread to every possible habitat, including environments that should have been completely lethal. They established permanent populations in Arctic regions that would freeze most species solid within minutes, Morgeth continued. Desert environments hot enough to cook organic matter. Mountain altitudes where oxygen levels are insufficient to support complex life. Ocean environments despite lacking natural aquatic adaptations. Natural environmental suits? Zextal suggested. Negative. They accomplished this through tool use, social cooperation, and the same reflexive adaptation we witnessed in the Blade incident. When their environment becomes hostile, they automatically develop behavioral and technological solutions faster than the environment can kill them. The true horror of humanity's evolutionary path was becoming clear. They weren't just survivors. They were a species that had been naturally selected for the ability to rapidly develop solutions to lethal problems, while those problems were actively trying to kill them. Social structure analysis? Zextal inquired. Morgeth's tentacles moved to display new information that would prove even more disturbing than their individual capabilities. Humans demonstrate what our sociologists term fractal cooperation, she explained. Individual humans show enhanced capabilities, but when they combine into groups, their effectiveness multiplies rather than simply adding together. The display showed human military units working in coordination. Small teams of humans accomplished objectives that should have required forces 10 times their size. Larger human organizations tackled projects that exceeded the capabilities of most galactic civilizations. Watch this construction project, Morgeth instructed, showing footage of humans building what appeared to be a massive orbital facility. What followed defied conventional understanding of project management and engineering logistics. Thousands of humans worked in perfect coordination without apparent central control systems. Individual workers made real-time adjustments that solved problems before those problems could impact the overall project. Groups of workers spontaneously reorganized themselves to handle unexpected challenges. How are they coordinating without technological communication systems? Zextal asked. That's the disturbing part, Morgeth replied. They're not using technology. Our analysis suggests they're naturally developing shared situational awareness through mechanisms we don't fully understand. They seem to instinctively know what other humans in their group are thinking and planning. The implications were staggering. Individual humans with impossible reflexes were concerning enough, but humans who could spontaneously develop hive mind-like coordination while maintaining their individual capabilities represented something that could potentially challenge the entire galactic order. Are they telepathic? Zextal wondered. No detectable psychic abilities, Morgeth confirmed. This appears to be natural social evolution optimized for group survival under extreme pressure. They've developed the ability to function as both independent operators and as components of larger cooperative entities. A new alarm chimed, indicating priority communication from the council chamber. Zextal activated the connection to find Thandok's concerned expression filling the display. Emergency session in 1 hour, the council leader announced. We've detected human activity that requires immediate analysis. What kind of activity? Zextal asked. They're building something, Thandok replied. Something large enough to be visible from interstellar distances, and they're building it fast. The connection ended, leaving Zextal and Morgeth staring at each other with growing alarm. The Galactic Council's surveillance systems were sophisticated enough to detect construction projects from several light-years away, but such projects typically required decades or centuries to reach detectable scale. How long have we been observing them? Zextal asked. Continuous surveillance for 47 days, Morgeth replied, checking her records. And they've completed something visible from interstellar distances in 47 days? The implications sent shock waves through both their consciousness. Galactic civilizations typically required years to plan major construction projects and decades to complete them. The coordination requirements alone for interstellar-scale construction usually demanded the combined efforts of multiple star systems. They arrived at the council chamber to find representatives from all 12 major galactic civilizations present, along with military advisors from 6 warrior species. The chamber's main display showed long-range sensor data from the human solar system. "Report," Thandok commanded as they took their positions. Fleet Admiral Korthak of the Hegemony Navy stepped forward, his scaled hide displaying the deep red patterns that indicated extreme concern. Long-range sensors detected energy signatures from the human system consistent with massive construction projects. Initial analysis suggested sensor error because the scale and speed seemed impossible. The display zoomed in on Earth's orbital region, revealing something that sent stunned silence through the chamber. Humanity had constructed an orbital ring around their planet. "Complete analysis confirms the structure," Admiral Korthak continued. "Approximate diameter, 47,000 kilometers. Estimated mass, 6 billion tons. Construction time based on first energy signatures, 39 days. The silence stretched as the assembled representatives tried to process what they were seeing. An orbital ring was a mega-engineering project that typically represented the pinnacle achievement of advanced galactic civilizations. Most species required 3 to 4 centuries to complete such constructions, assuming they possessed the technological capability and resource base to attempt them at all. "Construction methodology?" Council Leader Thandok inquired. "Unknown," Admiral Korthak admitted. "No detectable automated construction systems, no visible heavy machinery, no supply ships or resource transportation systems. Humans appear to have built this structure using methods that our engineering analysis cannot explain." Communications specialist Veltar stepped forward with additional data. "Honorable Council, we've intercepted human communications during the construction period. The project appears to have been completed entirely by volunteer civilian workers during their off-duty hours." "Volunteers?" Zextal repeated. "They built an orbital ring using volunteer labor?" "Affirmative. Our linguistic analysis indicates they treated this as what they term a community project, similar to recreational activities. Workers participated for personal satisfaction, rather than compensation or governmental mandate." The true scope of humanity's capabilities was becoming clear with terrifying precision. They possessed individual reflexes and coordination abilities that exceeded galactic norms. They demonstrated natural group cooperation that allowed them to function as components of larger entities, and they could apparently complete mega-engineering projects as casual community activities. But it was military strategist Quindar who identified the most disturbing aspect of humanity's orbital ring. "Honored Council," the ancient war leader announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had planned defenses for hundreds of star systems. "This structure is not a construction project. It's a weapon." The chamber erupted in concerned discussion before Thandok restored order. "Explain." Quindar activated detailed schematics that analyzed the ring's structural components and energy distribution systems. "The ring incorporates gravitational manipulation technology, electromagnetic acceleration systems, and what appears to be planetary-scale energy collection and focusing capabilities." "They're turning their planet into a fortress?" Admiral Korthak asked. "Worse," Quindar replied. "They're turning their planet into the largest military installation in galactic history. This ring could generate energy discharges capable of sterilizing planets across multiple star systems. It could launch projectiles at near-light speed with accuracy measured in centimeters across interstellar distances. It could manipulate local gravity fields to trap or destroy entire fleets." The implications hit the Council like a collapsing star. Humanity had not only demonstrated individual and group capabilities that exceeded galactic norms, but they had also constructed a weapon system that could potentially challenge the combined military might of the entire Galactic Council. "Military assessment?" Thandok requested. Krillnox stepped forward, his warrior's bearing somehow diminished by what he was about to report. Honored Council, my species has conquered 17 star systems through military superiority. We have faced every known form of galactic warfare and emerged victorious. But after analyzing human capabilities and their orbital ring system, I must recommend immediate defensive preparations. You're suggesting they represent a military threat? Zextal asked. I'm suggesting they represent the military threat, Krillnox corrected. Individual humans demonstrate capabilities that would make them effective special forces operatives by our standards. Human groups show coordination abilities that exceed our best military units, and now they've demonstrated the ability to construct strategic weapons that could dominate galactic space. Have they shown any aggressive intentions? Thandok inquired, though his tone suggested he was grasping for reasons to avoid the obvious conclusion. Veltar stepped forward with new intelligence data. Negative, honored leader. Human communications suggest they view the orbital ring as a defensive measure and a platform for expanding their space exploration capabilities. They show no apparent awareness that their construction project could be interpreted as a weapons system. This information, rather than providing reassurance, only deepened the Council's concern. A species that could casually construct planet-killing weapons while viewing them as community improvement projects represented something far beyond the normal parameters of galactic civilization. Recommendation? Thandok asked the assembled representatives. The debate that followed would determine not only humanity's fate, but the future structure of galactic civilization itself. Immediate integration under strict oversight, suggested Ambassador Yelnara of the Trade Federation. Bring them into galactic society where we can monitor and guide their development. Absolutely not, Admiral Korthak countered. Their capabilities combined with their rapid development rate could destabilize everything we've built. They could dominate galactic civilization within a few generations. Quarantine protocols, recommended Zextal. Establish boundaries around their system and prevent them from expanding until we better understand their intentions and capabilities. But it was Chief Analyst Morgeth who raised the possibility that would haunt the Council's nightmares. Honored representatives, we may not have the luxury of choosing our response timeline. Our projections suggest that human technological development is accelerating. The orbital ring may be just the beginning. Explain, Thandok commanded. Based on their construction speed and resource utilization patterns, they could have interstellar travel capability within 6 months, expanded industrial capacity within 1 year, and based on their rapid adaptation abilities, they could have technology exceeding our current capabilities within 5 years. The final component of the human threat profile was crystallizing. They weren't just dangerous in their current state. They were rapidly becoming more dangerous with each passing day. Motion to classify humanity as a Class Omega civilization risk, Admiral Korthak announced. Full War Council oversight and immediate defensive preparations. Class Omega classification had been used only 3 times in galactic history, each time for species that possessed capabilities threatening to galactic stability. The previous 3 Omega classifications had resulted in total warfare that lasted centuries and fundamentally changed galactic civilization. But as the Council prepared to vote on humanity's classification, none of them could escape the growing certainty that they were already too late to contain the threat. Humanity was no longer just a species under observation. They had become the galaxy's newest apex predator, and they were rapidly developing the tools to prove it. The War Council chambers had been sealed for 7 consecutive days as the galaxy's most experienced military strategists worked to develop response protocols for the human situation. Admiral Korthak stood before tactical displays that showed detailed analysis of every human capability they had observed, while representatives from 6 warrior species debated options that grew more limited with each passing hour. Update from surveillance, Communications Director Veltar announced as he entered the chamber with fresh intelligence data. The situation has deteriorated significantly. Fleet Commander Zektos of the Void Hunters looked up from strategic planning displays. Define deteriorated. Humans have achieved faster-than-light travel, Veltar replied, his voice carrying the weight of galactic-changing news. Not only achieved it, but they've developed a methodology that exceeds our current understanding of space-time manipulation. The chamber fell silent, except for the soft hum of holographic displays showing human star system activity. What they revealed would confirm the War Council's worst fears about humanity's rapid technological advancement. Analysis indicates they've developed what appears to be instantaneous travel between any points in space. Veltar continued, activating new displays. No detectable energy buildup, no space-time distortion signatures, no traditional faster-than-light physics. They simply appear to move from one location to another without traversing the space between. General Morthak of the Iron Legions stepped forward, her mechanical augmentations whirring as she processed the implications. That's impossible. Instantaneous travel violates fundamental physical laws. Apparently not for humans, Veltar replied, showing footage of human vessels simply vanishing from one location and appearing in another. They've established installations in 17 different star systems in the past 48 hours. 17 systems in 2 days? Admiral Korthak demanded. That's faster expansion than the hegemony achieved during our greatest conquest period. The expansion pattern is unlike anything in galactic military history, Veltar confirmed. They're not conquering or colonizing in traditional terms. They're conducting what they call neighborhood improvement projects. The tactical displays shifted to show human activity in the various star systems they had accessed. Rather than establishing military outposts or resource extraction operations, humans appeared to be conducting massive environmental restoration projects. They're repairing dead worlds, General Morthak observed, studying the data with growing confusion. Atmosphere restoration, ecosystem reconstruction, geological stabilization. Why would they waste resources on systems with no strategic value? It was Fleet Admiral Quindar who identified the truly disturbing aspect of human expansion activities. They're not wasting resources. They're demonstrating capabilities. Look at the scale and speed of these restoration projects. The displays showed time-lapse imagery of human environmental restoration work. Dead planets that had been lifeless for thousands of years were being transformed into garden worlds within days. Atmospheric processors that should have required decades to achieve measurable results were producing breathable atmospheres in hours. Ecosystem engineering that typically demanded centuries was being completed faster than galactic sensors could track. How many humans are working on these projects? Commander Zektos asked. Best estimates suggest approximately 50 individuals per planet, Veltar replied. Small teams accomplishing planetary-scale engineering projects using methods our scientists cannot explain. The implications sent cold currents through the assembled military leadership. If small teams of humans could restore dead worlds as casual projects, what could larger human populations accomplish if they decided to pursue military objectives? Military threat assessment? Admiral Korthak requested. General Morthak activated new strategic analysis displays that had been compiled over the past week. We've run comprehensive wargame scenarios based on observed human capabilities. The results are unprecedented. The displays show detailed combat simulations, pitting human forces against various galactic military units. The results were consistent across every scenario, complete human victory achieved through methods that violated conventional military science. Individual human combat effectiveness exceeds our elite special forces by factors of 10 to 15, General Morthak explained. Human group coordination allows small units to accomplish objectives that should require division-level forces. Human technological adaptation means they can counter our weapons and tactics faster than we can deploy them. Combined fleet action? Commander Zektos suggested. Irrelevant, General Morthak replied bluntly. Human space travel capabilities mean they can appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly. Traditional fleet tactics assume travel time and predictable movement patterns. Humans can bypass every defensive strategy we've developed over the past 5 millennia. The strategic reality was becoming undeniable. Humanity possessed individual capabilities that exceeded galactic elite forces, group coordination that multiplied their effectiveness beyond normal parameters, technological adaptation that rendered conventional weapons ineffective, and transportation technology that made traditional military strategy obsolete. What about their orbital ring weapon system? Admiral Korthak asked. Veltar brought up new surveillance data that would prove even more disturbing than their previous intelligence. They've constructed 17 additional rings, one around each planet they've restored. And they've linked them into what appears to be a galaxy-spanning weapons network. The tactical display showed energy signature analysis from across human-controlled space. Each orbital ring was connected to the others through some form of instantaneous communication system, creating a weapons network that could coordinate attacks across galactic distances without delay. Combined firepower analysis, General Morthak requested. Sufficient to sterilize every inhabited planet in the galaxy simultaneously, Veltar replied. With enough excess capacity to glass every moon, asteroid, and space station as well. The War Council stared at the displays in stunned silence. Humanity had progressed from interesting first contact prospect to galactic extinction threat in less than 8 weeks. They possessed the individual capabilities to defeat any military force, the technological advancement to render conventional warfare obsolete, and the firepower to destroy galactic civilization entirely. But it was the intelligence that Veltar delivered next that would transform military analysis into pure terror. There's more, he announced, activating classified surveillance data. We've detected human activity near the galactic core. The display showed long-range sensor readings from the galaxy's central regions, areas that had been considered impossible to access due to gravitational anomalies and energy radiation that could destroy any known technology. They're conducting archaeological operations, Veltar explained, investigating ancient ruins and technologies left behind by the Forerunner civilizations. Every military leader in the chamber understood the implications immediately. The Forerunners were the galaxy's previous dominant civilization, a species so advanced that their abandoned technology still exceeded current galactic capabilities. They had disappeared over 50,000 years ago for unknown reasons, leaving behind ruins and devices that could reshape reality itself. How are they accessing Forerunner sites? Admiral Korthak asked. The environmental hazards alone should kill them instantly. Unclear, Veltar replied. Our long-range sensors show humans working in areas where radiation levels exceed lethal thresholds by factors of thousands. They appear to be immune to environmental hazards that would sterilize entire fleets. And they're activating Forerunner technology, General Morthak added, highlighting energy signatures from the galactic core. Devices that have been dormant for 50 millennia are coming online under human operation. The final piece of humanity's threat profile was crystallizing with terrifying clarity. They possessed natural capabilities that exceeded galactic military standards, technological advancement that rendered conventional warfare obsolete, firepower sufficient to destroy galactic civilization, and now access to Forerunner technology that could reshape reality itself. Strategic recommendations? Admiral Korthak requested, though his tone suggested he already knew the options had become severely limited. Immediate surrender, General Morthak replied without hesitation. Negotiate the best possible terms while we still have something to negotiate with. That's capitulation to a species we haven't even contacted yet, Commander Zektos protested. It's recognizing military reality, General Morthak countered. "We've run every possible scenario, every strategic option, every technological advantage we might deploy. Humanity wins every engagement through methods we can't counter or predict." "What about alliance formation?" Admiral Korthak suggested. "Combined galactic response?" "Irrelevant," General Morthak replied. "Humans could defeat the combined galactic military forces without utilizing their orbital ring network. And if they access sufficient Forerunner technology, they could delete our civilizations from existence without actually fighting us." The War Council fell into grim silence as they contemplated the full scope of humanity's advantages. In less than 2 months, a species they had initially considered for routine first contact had become the dominant force in the galaxy through natural development and rapid technological advancement. "There is one other consideration," Veltar announced hesitantly. "Report," Admiral Korthak commanded. "Our behavioral analysis suggests that humans remain unaware they represent a threat to galactic civilization," Veltar explained. "Their communications indicate they believe their activities are entirely peaceful and beneficial." This information, rather than providing hope, only deepened the Council's despair. A species that could accidentally become the galaxy's apex predator while attempting community improvement projects represented something far beyond normal threat parameters. "They're not trying to conquer us," Commander Zektos observed. "They're just naturally better at everything than we are." "Correct," General Morthak confirmed, "which means negotiation and diplomacy may be our only viable options. They might be willing to coexist peacefully if we approach them correctly." "And if they're not willing?" Admiral Korthak asked. "Then galactic civilization as we know it ends when they decide it ends," General Morthak replied. "Our only influence over that timeline is how we interact with them." The decision that would determine the fate of galactic civilization was becoming clear. The War Council could recommend military action that would certainly fail and likely provoke humanity into demonstrating their full capabilities, or they could recommend immediate diplomatic contact and hope that humanity's apparent peaceful intentions would extend to formal relationships with galactic civilization. "Motion to recommend immediate diplomatic contact," Admiral Korthak announced. "Full Council authorization for first contact under emergency protocols." "Seconded," came from every military leader present. As the War Council prepared their recommendations for the Galactic Council, none of them could escape the irony of their situation. For 5,000 years, they had maintained galactic peace by demonstrating overwhelming military superiority to potential threats. Now they were faced with a species so naturally superior that their only hope for survival was to appeal to humanity's better nature. The blade-catching incident that had first attracted galactic attention now seemed quaint compared to humanity's demonstrated capabilities. Marcus Chen's casual catch of a falling tool had been their first glimpse of a species that was naturally designed to be unstoppable. But as surveillance data continued flowing in from human-controlled space, it was becoming clear that humanity's true capabilities were still largely unknown. They were rapidly approaching technological levels that exceeded galactic understanding, accessing ancient knowledge that previous civilizations had considered impossible to obtain, and accomplishing feats of engineering that rewrote the basic rules of what was considered possible. The Galactic Council would soon face a choice that would define the future of civilization itself: integrate with humanity as junior partners in whatever galactic order they chose to establish, or face the consequences of opposing a species that appeared to have evolution's perfect design for survival and dominance. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had emerged from their single world and established themselves as the new apex species through natural development and unconscious superiority. They had become exactly what every civilization feared encountering among the stars: a species that was simply better at existence itself. The age of galactic civilization dominated by the Council was ending. The age of humanity had begun, whether they realized it or not. And somewhere in the depths of space, Marcus Chen continued his maintenance work, unaware that his casual reflexes had triggered the most significant shift in galactic power since the fall of the Forerunners. The aliens had watched a human snatch a falling blade, and in that moment, they knew their dominance was doomed. They just hadn't realized how quickly that doom would arrive.